Well, hello there. Hi, it's Marilyn Hawes again with Unprecedented or at Unprecedented TV. And you will find us on YouTube. And this is my show called Heart and Soul. And thank you for tuning in or catching up later to watch it. But apart from that, I'm also CEO of Freedom from Abuse. And this is a charity seeking to prevent, and notice the word prevent, child abuse or any abuse, actually, because there's far too much of it in society today. So for Heart and Soul, I'm inviting anyone with a life experience story to tell that's a little bit gritty and dark, or someone that's got a very interesting job that most people wouldn't want to do, to come on my show. Now, you may think, she hasn't contacted me. But, that being the case, please contact @PrecedenTedTV and we'll get you on. So what is my show all about? Well, I want to discuss those issues from which all too many people wish to turn away from, and they don't want to look at what is other people's reality because they never think it's going to happen to them. So I think these situations need to be given oxygen. And in that time that we'll have with today's guest and other guests, you hopefully will be able to expand your mind, because now you will have informed information that may just turn a key that makes you feel differently, think differently, say things differently about the topic that we're going to discuss on every show. So basically, what I do is, my aim is to kick the elephant out of the room. So I love elephants, but that's not the point. And today I welcome the lovely Johanna Howells. Johanna, where are you?
Hi, how are you, Marilyn? Lovely to see you again.
And you too. Wonderful. And thank you so much for coming on my show and bearing your soul.
You're very welcome, and I hope you're ready to be to bear
So well, now we have to tell the viewers that Johanna is, and she will explain the later, uber good at sport, right? So that being the case, Johanna, I have to say this. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say. I'm so sorry we trounced you at rugby.
Oh, don't even talk to
I
me
wasn't
about
sure if
sport
your
this
team
weekend.
actually came out on the pitch.
Oh, don't talk about sport this week. Sport for me this weekend has been quite painful.
Yeah,
so
I was scoring points going, see you tomorrow, Johanna.
yes, I heard about the rugby result. I only heard about it earlier on today. I didn't even realise they were playing. But yes, not good.
Now, my next door neighbour is, I mean, honestly, look, he has thighs like a tree trunk. He is the England coach for the Scrums.
Amazing.
And a more gentle, quiet man you couldn't wish to meet. Not what you'd expect at all. Anyway, let's move on to you. So now, Johanna, I would love you from when you were born in South Wales. And my favourite place is down near Monmouth, not Mumbles, the Mumbles. I love the Mumbles. But if you'd like to say something about how you got into this sporty past of yours, and then we'll talk about the other side of your life that triggered from that. Okay, so please.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, my father was big into sport. He was a rugby player himself, played first division rugby in Wales. Had a Welsh trial, was Welsh captain as a youngster. So my mum was a tennis player, albeit for fun, not for competition. So I think I was kind of born into a family that the genes were already there, on both sides, not just on my father's side, but predominantly I would say on my father's side. And I walked at 10 months. I didn't crawl, I walked. And as soon as I walked, I ran. So I think the genetics were already in play way before I even was introduced to a ball or a bat or a balloon, which is how it started. And it was a balloon moment, and we fondly laugh about it now as a family, because I would play keepy-ups with a balloon for hours and just keep it going with various parts of my body, even from a toddler. So I think knowing the family connections that I've got as well. My cousin is a bronze medalist at Commonwealth judo. Mark, he won bronze in Scotland in Commonwealth. So it's obviously in the genetics. So I sort of really enjoyed gymnastics in school, and I enjoyed baseball, rounders we played in school, until my teacher put a hockey stick in my hand. Unfortunately, she's not alive now. I wish she was, because she would have been one of the first people I would have contacted when I achieved my my first cap for Wales. But I mean, we're talking at 6 or 7 years old, and I'd seen the Olympics, and I'm big into the Olympics. The Olympics are on at the moment. There's some fantastic stuff going on at the moment in the Olympics, and it just gets me every single time. It gets me in my bones. So it started off young. My father was insistent upon me going to the athletics club, which I seemingly had very little against doing, and was the first there, the last to leave, always helping putting the equipment away, always listening, and just having fun as a youngster. And I think, growing up in the 80s, being born in the 90s, growing up and, sort of hitting the early 80s, as a young child like that, having the freedom to be able to explore sport, albeit in a lot lesser capacity than you can nowadays, obviously, but particularly for girls, athletics was a really good sport to get into, and it kind of snowballed from there.
No, hang on. Oh God, hang on. Wait a minute. Oh, no. Oh God.
Camera's gone.
Oh.
It's okay.
Not sure what happened there. she used a phone rather than a computer.
That's
so
why I came home to use the home computer rather than my phone.
Oh, is it? Well, for some reason, Marilyn can't see the guest when she's on a computer. So we do it.
Sorry, I get so annoyed about this. What happens to my phone? Carry on. Carry on. Pick up from where you were.
So the Olympics really was what.
One sec. Sorry, I'm really, really sorry, because you're now on the other side to each other. So just hold that thought. So what I'll do is this. Yeah, that should be good. Right, bye.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Off you go.
So we talk, going back to the Olympics. So that was really what kind of got me to start off with. That was, I remember 1980s Olympics. I remember 84 Olympics because it was my favourite Olympics as a youngster, because Britain did so well in that Olympics and our kit was beautiful, and I'm very much into the kit as well. So, it all had to look good on the, when you were doing it. And it just grew within me. So sport, and it helped develop me as an individual. There's lots of positives about young people being in sport. And I think nowadays there's a lot more support around people being in sport. But for me as a youngster, particularly with athletics, being very singled out sport, you're not in a team unless you're in a relay. You're not in a team unless you're going to a competition. It is just you, those two lines. And I was a sprinter. So I was 100 meters straight down the line. There's the end, start, finish. Thank you, all. That's what we need to be doing today. And I grew up around, people who went on to the Olympics and the Commonwealths and the Olympics. Unfortunately, my career was going very well in athletics, and I was sort of making those transitions and building, what potentially had a really promising future. But unfortunately, at 15, I took a really serious injury. Looking back now, I think it might well have been an ACL injury. But obviously back in those days...
hang on a minute. Explain ACL injury, because I just heard that today. I was watching something.
Yes.
The
Olympics. ACL is the acute cruciate ligament. So it's one of the ligaments in the back of the knee. So you've got two that cross and hold the tops and bottoms of your legs together, and the knee in the middle. And all the muscles around it stabilise the knee. So you heard today about Lindsay Vonn, who's the skier.
Yes, that's what I was referring to. Yeah. I like the Winter Olympics.
So yes. She tore her ACL ligament like I did, or what I believe to be what I did back at 15. She's had operations, reconstructions on it, but she tore it again last week in a competition. Competed today and fell over and had to get airlifted from.
I watched it. Terrifying.
I was watching the slow-mo of her body shape, and I'm hoping that in actual fact it's not any further damage to any damage to her knee.
I don't think she is. I think she's recovering in hospital okay. I think she is. But you also were trained by two very well-known gentlemen, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was very fortuitous enough that being at Newport Harriers in South Wales, which was one of the big athletic clubs in this area, even back then, still is now, had a history of bringing internationals through. So I was surrounded by people who were training around me 2-3 times a week, who were competing at Commonwealth world title levels. My own coaches, Lynn the Leap, the long jumper, Olympian for GB, he coached me in long jump. Doug Turner was a world champion, silver medalist, 200 meters. He coached me long jump and sprinting. Jamie Bolsher went on to win world gold in 400 indoor and numerous relays, amazing relay teams for GB at Olympics. They were my training partners.
And Colin Jackson was one, wasn't he?
Colin Jackson and Nigel Walker were also two that I trained with. The Colin and Nigel, they came to our international camps, so we were blessed with having them with us in small groups. So I was maybe training in a group of maybe 6 to 8 people, sprinters, who then were having the benefits of insight from a current Olympian who at the time was world champion, Olympian, Commonwealth. I mean, you name it, Colin had his name on it. So, and the Olympic record. So I was surrounded by talent.
You know, just listening to you, Johanna, I feel I need to go and suck half an orange and have a lie down and have a bottle of water. I'm already worn out.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I mean, my children are all, especially my daughter, very into sport, and she was one of those clever kids. She could have done anything, you know, anything, and had a difficulty deciding what she wanted to do. But her little children are similarly, they live in Bermuda, and the oldest one is she's 8. She's in the under 10s triathlon, and what's her name? Flo. Oh God, she won a gold for doing the triathlon.
Oh
Bermuda.
yeah,
Flojo. That's right. And she's met her. I mean, honestly, how do you get to meet someone like that? Anyway, but behind this enormous, amazing story, there is a very nasty, dark side, isn't there, of your childhood, very traumatic. And what I like to do with my show is I like people like yourself who are like living the dream, as you have done, but showed enormous resilience to come through what they went through as a child. And my show, I love to end on a huge message of hope. You can get there. So are you happy to share with me your trauma history?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I had a very, how can I describe, I had 2 different parents who came from very different places. I had a structured, safe, loving mother, and a very difficult, distant, and very challenging father. For me, as an only child growing up until the age of 7 and a half, nearly 8, which I was, it was difficult because when he was there, he was a pain, and when he wasn't there, it was harmonious. And as a young child, I don't think you really fully comprehend the impact of what's happening around you, maybe as much as you would as a younger adult, or even as a or even as an even more mature adult now in my 50s.
Can I explain to you as why that is? Because when you are a young child, because I think it's interesting, like you said, you couldn't work it out. When you're a young child, your conscious mind doesn't come online until you're about 8. So all that time prior to that, everything that you would have experienced and learned and watched was your reality. You only have your subconscious mind, and it just absorbs everything. you don't have the ability to have the internal conversation where you can say, oh, this is ridiculous, my dad's a pain, blah blah blah, well, stuff that, I'll do this, that and the other. You don't have that ability, by which time that stuff sticks in your consciousness, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously as a mature adult now, and certainly somebody who's in the field for a very long time, working with complex needs, having gone through trauma myself in the last couple of years, going through therapy, learning a lot more about PTSD, which is a diagnosis, reflecting on childhood, and obviously how instrumental those first 10 years really are. And on reflection, I can see behaviors, conversations I've had with friends who I grew up with through school, who I discussed behaviors with, and they said, well, yeah, we didn't understand why you were behaving that way, or we didn't understand why you were too scared to go home on that particular day, or we didn't understand why it was that you wanted to choose to go and stay with your grandparents for a week and you didn't want to come home. So there were lots of different types of behavior that happened. And then obviously, as I got a little bit older, with a younger brother coming in as well at that age, sport was huge for me because it was my outlet. It was the only place I ever felt I was safe to be myself, which I was still learning who that was. But also I was very fortunate enough to not just have inspiring, successful athletes around me, but I also had some really good coaches. And I think what I want to make sure that I try and get across in this interview with you is what being coached means, how you can help your child to become coachable, why a coach has a massive benefits to the growth and development of a young person, and why I believe that there is a particular style of coaching that can be transferred across all domains, trauma management being one of them, which is another area, obviously, if we've got time, we can discuss. But,
so, being a clever kid with sport, and my daughter was the same. Now, mine, when I was at school, I was very good at music and academics. Were you bullied? Were you bullied at school? I was.
Yeah.
Were you bullied?
Yeah, I was. Right the way through.
Horrible, isn't it?
Right the way through. I remember being very standing at a distance in the playground and watching people at a distance and not feeling comfortable enough to be able to go up and say, can I come and play with you? I remember in junior school, although predominantly I had a lot of support in my junior school, but there were occasions where it was, so-and-so had that dress on yesterday. So you're wearing the dress that someone else wore from the day before. Like as if an 8-year-old can really work that one out. But anyway, obviously other people pay far more attention to what other people were wearing and I didn't. But that was probably because I was cleaning the sports cupboard, or I was relaying the mats in the hall or something daft like that, I expect, Marilyn.
But it's interesting because I was very good at drama, and I went on to be a music and drama teacher. And I've mentioned this girl's name. She must be hating me if she ever watches my show. I still remember, and I'm sure you do. Can you remember the specific names of the bullies? The girl that did this to me was Hilary Webster, and I had the star role of the Bluebell Fairy once, and my mother spent ages making this dress, and this horrible Hilary put her foot right through my dress. I've never forgotten her or how she looks. You don't forget these things, do you?
No, I think it's strange because a lot of what I did with the trauma therapist more recently over the last couple of years have consequent as a result of the PTSD diagnosis.
Yes.
I think that was highlighted quite obviously for me about the impact that all of that had on me, and about my own confidence within social environments. If you put me onto a hockey pitch in front of 500 people to play, I wouldn't be fazed any more than I'm fazed sitting here with you right now. And although there would be that little bit, obviously, because we're talking about things that are difficult subjects to discuss. But what I'm trying to say to you is that on those stages, I was absolutely fine. You put me into an environment where it's a bit more pointed. And then obviously that was when I started to see differences in my personality. Social, and a lot of that came down to secondary school, because I went to a very difficult secondary school, and I spoke differently, and I got bullied for that. I wore Clark shoes, I got bullied for that. I was good at sport, I got bullied for that.
No, I think that's a principal thing. You're successful, and that's why you would have been bullied, because people don't like that.
Thankfully, we didn't have social media back then.
And it's just, I mean, were you? You told me that you were tormented by your sexuality. How old were you when that happened? Was it obvious when you were in primary school?
Other people tell me that it was obvious and they worked it out. For me, it wasn't. If I'm brutally honest, I thought it was a rebellion against my father.
Right.
As a youngster, it was in my thought, it was a natural rebellion. But there's consequences to those sorts of things, and it took me till I was in my mid-20s before I was comfortable enough to say, actually, no, I believe that I am attracted to the same sex. Not that I'm not attracted to men. I'm not saying that at all. And I've met some fantastic men, guys, throughout my life. But I've never been able to have that emotional attachment to a man.
Yeah.
And that's the difference for me. It's not that I don't enjoy their company, but that was a very traumatic time. Growing up and coming out, being dragged out of you. Literally by my hair being dragged out of me,
It's extremely difficult, especially back then. I mean, because there was such a stigma about it, wasn't there? I mean, and funnily enough, I think, in a way, I think maybe worse for girls than for boys somehow. I don't know, but it is. It's a strange one. I mean, let's talking about the trauma. What would you say trauma is? What is trauma? Can you describe that? What is it?
I believe now, having had quite a substantial amount of therapy over the last couple of years, and obviously being from the trade in the area myself and knowing quite a bit from what I've learned and read and qualifications and so on, what I believe trauma is the impact that an event has on you. It's the impact that has, whether that is a mental stamp, whether that is a physical stamp, whether that's an emotional stamp, or whether that's something more deep-rooted. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I am very respectful of people who choose to follow religion. I understand why people would choose to follow religion, because I know that people like to have some framework to work within. And I can fully understand that. But I think
I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I mean, religion has caused so many wars. I don't think how you can know God would want you to do that. But I am spiritual. I do believe there is something beyond us. Do you know what I mean? I do believe that. But so would you say in some strange, bizarre way that the trauma had helped you at all? And I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but I mean, I'm thinking, because you are resilient, you have been.
Thank you.
Did it in some way help power drive you in some way?
How childhood trauma, and when I say childhood trauma, I would say I'm talking about anything that happened to me personally under the age of 21, because I don't believe till the age of 21 I actually had a clue what I was doing, because we are thrown into adulthood. We are given responsibilities that we're not ready for. So for me, I would say that what helped create and build my character on top of my genetics, I would say the various traumas that I've gone through, remembering we've missed the big one, which was my operation at 12 years old.
Explain.
I had a life-threatening operation. Well, I had a life-threatening accident that gave me less than an hour to live.
What was that? For goodness sake.
I ruptured my spleen.
So
the spleen is the organ within the body that cleans blood, and it will fight infection, and it will help to balance red and white cells. I had an accident from a playground accident, fell from a playground accident about 25 foot, and ruptured my spleen, internally bleeding, And they didn't find that for another 16 hours. By the time they found out that that's what was happening, I had less than an hour to live. So obviously
Good grief.
I was 12 at that point. So I was doing very well in my athletics at that point. I was super fit at this point. I mean, I was in good shape, real good shape. As a 12-year-old, I was in great shape. So I think that helped. But I mean, the accident itself, I have very little memory of the accident. I have sporadic memory of, even now, of what happened afterwards. So the other bits I have to fill in with what I've been told. But I remember coming round from the accident and saying, there's two of you, meaning I'm seeing double.
Oh.
And my parents were there, and it was over the Christmas period. And so nobody was there, you know, and there was another operation happening that had to then be put on standby for me to go in, because I would have lost my life if they hadn't done that. That has a profound effect on you as a child. And I mean, I'm convinced that now I know and understand more about out-of-body experiences. I'm convinced that I had an out-of-body experience. I have distinct memory and physical recall of watching myself lying in that operating theatre, and people just talking normally, having a random conversation about some TV show or something random while everyone is just busily going along and beats are happening. And I have a visual memory recall of that. And I believe that I had an out-of-body experience. And when I came out of that, and people kept saying to me, remembering we're talking in the 80s here.
Yes.
So in the 80s, people didn't say, they said, here's a plaster, go away, you're bleeding on my carpet. It wasn't a case of, oh, my darling, oh, my goodness, let's wrap you up. That wasn't how we were dealt with as children back then. And I'm grateful for that on reflection, because I think that, along with my physical fitness, along with my mental fitness, because I was mentally strong, because I had come up against competition and losing and not winning, and that's hard to take as a kid. So you build that resilience, you build up that tolerance to failure.
Absolutely. And I think
it is a tolerance to failure.
I don't know if you agree with this, Johanna, but I find in schools, so many parents are now, I would call them helicopter parents. They're like hovering all the time. Blah, 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 blah. My child can't fail. My child can't fall over. My child can't get dust on it, you know. And that's why kids today aren't resilient. I mean, our parents were much harder with us. You know, you fell over, come on, get up, dust yourself off, back in the game again. They're just overly protected these days, I think. And then teachers have become social workers, not someone that just teaches and steers you through the navigating waters of growing up, do they, you know?
Because they're not able to teach academics like they used to.
No.
Because the demands on youngsters nowadays is their demands are so much greater outside of academia. So,
exactly. So all these traumas you had, so I've had loads of trauma as well in my life, and I haven't succeeded like you have. But I could name this. I don't know if you can. Which of your traumas, because there's a whole range of them, isn't there? Which of your trauma did you find the hardest to deal with?
The more recent.
Which was?
The most recent trauma for me was COVID, because obviously I'm immune deficient. My operation left me immune deficient. I don't have the organ in my body that I need to filter my blood, clean my blood, to clean away infection. I don't have that. I am immune deficient. I have an immune deficiency.
Oh, gosh. I mean, can you replace the spleen?
No.
Oh, golly. No,
if you imagine a grape and a grape splitting, that's what my spleen did. And the spleen is full of blood. So I was internally bleeding. So all the blood gets pumped into the spleen. As it's pumped around the body, it goes into the spleen to clean it before it goes back up to the brain to start again. My body doesn't have that.
So you must have been extremely, well, maybe you're not, maybe you weren't, but one would imagine that with that lack of immunity, you must have been really quite nervous about during COVID.
I would say that I jumped about 4,000 scales on nervous, Marilyn. I was terrified. I was petrified. There wasn't a bone in my body that did not shake, and did not stop shaking for best part of 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
I can honestly and truthfully say to you that through everything that I've ever been with or been through, and yes, on the face of it, it does look like I have had a very long life history of repetitive traumas. But then if anyone was to sit down and look at their life, I'm sure they could write a pretty decent catalogue as well. Okay, granted.
I think that's right. But I always say to people as well, it's how you roll with the punches, isn't it? I mean, and I know some people aren't children. I think I was born resilient, but then it faded away from me for a while because my mother was like an emotional abuser, but I still felt it was there. And then I had domestic abuse and all the rest of it. But I am much more balanced and calmer and actually like myself now through what I've strangely learned from trauma about myself, about people. And I don't look at it as something, at the time I did, but now I don't look at it as something bad.
No. I find it impossible to sit here and say that the last 6 years has been a waste of time, because it hasn't been. Although it's been a horrific time for myself as a shielder, as somebody dutifully who shielded like we were told to do, just like everybody else was told to do, and to go and shield. But we did shield because we had medical reasons for that. At the time, I wasn't protected by employment law, and I lost my job.
Oh, yes.
I lost my job along with a lot of other people who are my age, who are, I am 53 now. I mean, I was, in 51 when I got sacked from my job, because I was unable, because of the mental anguish of being told I had to return to work, of being put into an environment where COVID was prevalent, that other people were allowed to stay at home and I wasn't. That didn't help my situation one bit. And employment law at the time.
Where were you working then?
I worked for the prison service.
Oh.
I was working for the prison service at the time.
Wow. Well, I've visited a lot of prisons through my own work, but I don't honestly think I could work in one.
I loved my job. I call me crazy, but I loved my job. I went into the prison service with complete open eyes. I was a mature person going into the service. I have a wealth of experience of my own background, as much as working with complex needs for over 20 years. I felt that I was qualified. I was suitable. I was sporty. I was fit. I can talk to people. You know, I'm old school, so I can talk to people in an old school way. Try and keep up with new school, which is a bit difficult sometimes, you know, when you don't understand the language. But, you know, and I felt that I had a lot to offer, and I felt I had a lot to bring to the table. And obviously the work I'd done in the community with rehousing and helping people into employment and helping those who couldn't work to be more comfortable in their world, and, you know, engage in activities in the community to help broaden their well-being. You know, I felt that I was qualified. I felt that I was suitable, you know, and being a strong character. And I wasn't fazed, even though I understood the risks. Were you ever threatened? Of course. I mean, you're working in a violent environment. I mean,
were you in what category prisons were you in?
So I was in a men's Cat B prison.
Oh, Cat B.
Cat B. That predominantly had Cat A and Cat B prisons.
Yeah. I visited prisoners in that, and it's
it's volatile. It's very volatile. I mean, for me, I found it actually quite. I don't like to use the word easy, because I don't mean what it implies. But I had an innate ability to be able to pick up on the energy of what was going on.
Mm.
And I would be able to suss out just based on what I was listening to, you know, and looking more than just with your eyes, and listening with more than just your ears. You know, I sense something was going to come. And people will tell you who've worked in the service that you've developed that innate ability to be.
Yeah, I think you have to. That's a survival mechanism, isn't it? I mean, you've basically got eyes in your backside, haven't you? You've always sort of looking over your shoulder, but you're not. I always remember when I was teaching once, and it's the same when you're not the same. I mean, it's not violent like you explained, but even when you're in a classroom and you're doing something on the whiteboard, and you just say, "Simon, would you please sit down and stop being a pain?" And they're like, how did she know that? And I go,
Yeah.
because I've got eyes in my backside. But you just smell it, don't you?
Of course.
You just know when it's going to kick off. I mean, I've been in prisons, and I've been in Cat A and Cat B prisons, and you do feel the tension building. I don't know how you do it. I really, I couldn't be threatened in that way. Well done you. I mean, but did that, how did that help your trauma?
Well, the trauma I experienced with relation to COVID was the fact that I was being made to be put into a life-threatening situation. So if you like, you could argue, if you like, that re-triggered my accident. Life-saving situation, threat to life. You know, we could argue that could have been what triggered me off was the accident, was the thought of then I am more susceptible to catching COVID and dying from COVID than anybody else around me because I am immune deficient. To be told that you have to go to work anyway, and you're expected to go to work, even though you have presented what you've presented as in what you believe to be an unsafe action, that was enough to break me. And the thought of, I mean, the difference with being in a prison, and I say this, and I'm going to say it in a joking manner, but I mean it seriously in the sense that I would rather deal with 70 prisoners rioting than have to face COVID again. Because for me, COVID was more of a threat. I never felt that my life was in danger like I did with 70 people rioting at me, as I did with the thought of one little round COVID thing, which obviously was imprinted into my brain from seeing it so many times, you know, and dreaming about being chased by giant COVID bubbles, you know, that you see on the news. I mean, I'm not just the only one out of, I know I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was serious, Marilyn. It was not pleasant at all. It was, you know, I mean, I was traumatized by the trauma.
Oh, yeah, well, you're re-traumatized, aren't you?
Yeah, I was constantly traumatized, constantly being traumatized. And it was threat to life, 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 all the time.
I mean, I find it fascinating going to prisons. People think I'm weird, but it's such a world apart from the outside world. I do think it's extreme. But then I've always been interested in crime and policing and stuff like that. It's what I wanted to do when I was 18. My dad wouldn't let me. So I've never lost, how I became a music teacher from that, I really don't know. But I've never lost my interest in that side of life. And I have seen some extraordinary, lovely people. And I think I have seen some extraordinary, lovely people who actually were innocent and have been wrongly put behind bars, and their resilience to cope with that. I went into one prison and I just said, come on. And I said, I can't remember, I was there. It was category A1. There was a spare cell. And I said, go on and treat me like I'm just walking in and I'm now going down for 20 years. Treat me, lock me away like you would do. I can still remember that experience of that metal door slamming and the little grid thing sliding across and looking at these 4 grey walls with a miserable bed and like a sort of a window with bars on. And I thought, and I am going to have to stay here for 20 years. And I thought, why? Why does anyone commit crime? And then you could hear all the other prisoners shouting. What is bizarre, if you go into a paedophile wing, which I have been in, it's remarkably eerily quiet. It's not like cell block H, but that experience of being shut in a cell in the way they put them in was, I mean, that would have enough to have kept me straight on the straight and narrow forever, because it's really something, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, you know, I mean, the environment is not for everybody. I mean, for me, I believed in my heart of hearts that I could bring something to the table. I believed that I had a skill set and a knowledge base that would be invaluable within the realms of helping people, rehabilitate them. I'm a trained teacher myself. I've specialised in work-related qualifications and training. I've specialised in psychology was my thing. That, you know...
Wow. So did you do this? At what point did you train to become a teacher? When you knew that your sport career was pretty much over?
yeah, I got to 30 or 30, early 30s, and I just had an epiphany. And I had some time off to really think seriously about what I wanted my future to look like, because up until that point, I was working towards having this second chance of life, because operation, that was kind of how I mentally viewed it, even as a young child, and still do. So even through all of the different various traumas that I've been through, and people have said to me, you know, do you feel like you're going to commit suicide? And for me, that was never an option, because I've been given a gift of a life, because that's how I saw it. And I still do believe in my heart of hearts that that is the case. So I'm not going to throw away or injure myself to a point where I am unalived when I've been gifted this life. For me, that has always been a foundation for me, solid foundation, because I could never fathom or mentally understand why I survived it. I was guilt for whatever reason as a child, as you do, I don't know. But I said to myself, you were given the opportunity to see what was going on and how you had your life given back to you. Go and live it. Go and do it, what you want to, the way you want to live it. And I did. And there's lots of things that I did that I look back on and I think, wow, how did you even find that opportunity? How did you even know that person could open that door for you? But it did. And I think that relentlessness to want to experience living, having been nearly lost my life, and again when coming back to COVID, foundation wise, I think what kept me going through all of that was the little coach on my shoulder, who's the me version of the coach. I became the student, shut up and started listening to what my internal self was telling me, because I had the knowledge, because obviously, you know, what we seek is already within us. So I don't know who it was who said that, but it's someone famous who said that, and I can't remember who it was. But, you know, what we seek is already within us. And I had to take that faith, I had to take that desire to want to allow myself to help myself.
Yes.
Get it? Am I
feel, because I did you ever feel in any way like taking your own life?
No, I can honestly and truthfully say to you, no point, at no point. And people said to me, because we've had hockey friends who have taken their own lives in the last 10 years, 2 of them, and I know how much that hit the bigger, broader Welsh Masters hockey scene, and how hard it hit them. And even when I was going through what I was going through, and some of those friends or acquaintances would say, you know, you have to do this because I didn't help that person. No, you can't do that to somebody who's in trauma, because you're offloading your own guilt of not helping that person onto the person, and they are then become a victim of your passing of your own emotion. That can't happen. And I was so aware of that I literally put a stop to people being around me, because I knew that I had to rely on certain counsel.
Yes.
And there was certain counsel I could trust, and there was certain counsel that I couldn't trust. And I don't mean I don't distrust them. What I mean by that is that they weren't in my shoes. They couldn't possibly give me the information I needed, because they had never experienced my life.
I think the trauma, I think whatever's caused the trauma, you can, I mean, I'm very empathic and I'm very sensitive, and I can push myself to nearly 95% of the pain, but the other 5%, no one can. You have to have been there. The other day I had 3 dads walking on my show, and I mean, what amazing men. And I only had the one dad on, but honestly, I'm so privileged that he came on, but I was emotionally drained. I really thought that I'd had a stomach punch. Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I find. I sometimes wish I wasn't sensitive, because I do feel someone's pain. I do, and it really makes my heart literally ache. And I mean, listening to you, I mean, my goodness me, what a beacon of hope you are, because I mean, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary what you've achieved, and yet never gone down that dark route of looking down that pit like I did and so many. But someone
Marilyn, please don't misunderstand me. I've been face to face with dark. I've sat face to face with dark many times. But I've always had a conversation with dark. I always talk to dark.
Right.
I don't sit there in the dark and allow that to happen. I talk to it. And I'm like, right, okay, we're here. What are we looking at then? What are we dealing with? Okay, right. We're going to shut up then. And I'm just going to sit here and until I feel something in my body. Then I'm going to tell you what I'm feeling. And then we're going to have a conversation about it, aren't we? And I'll talk it out. And even in those hardest of times, even in the last few years even, it always came down to you were given a gift.
Yes.
Do not unalive the gift. And that's that foundation for me every single, and it's enough to turn me every time.
100%. 100%. I love the and I often have it in my bag sometimes when I'm feeling a bit low. I love that poem, Footprints in the Sand. That just when you're despairing and you think you're not walking with me anymore, no, I was actually carrying you. And I love that thought. I really love that thought. So we're coming to the end of what's been the most extraordinary, enlightening interview, Johanna. I have to say, I'm absolutely gobsmacked. But you know what is next for Johanna?
Never a dull moment, Marilyn. Never a dull moment.
No, it can't be. Life's too short. You're a long time dead, aren't you?
Well,
live every minute. But what is now on the horizon, your objective now going forward?
Well, I have to embrace the last 20 years of my life for sure, because I made a conscious effort to pursue a career. And just because my career at the prison service came to an end, I don't believe my careers need to come to an end, albeit I feel that needs to be from a self-employed point of view now, because the trust in an employer is no longer there, as you can probably imagine. So like I said to you earlier on about coaching, I'm very aware that in this country there isn't a regulatory board and hasn't been a regulatory board for trauma until now. Recently, as you know, because you've interviewed Rachel Fairhurst. Rachel Fairhurst is going to explode onto the circuit at some point in the not too distant future with this incredible system and framework that she's built and set up for the management and the governance for trauma informed and trauma aware practices in the UK. Long time needed. I can see Rachel and I teaming up at some point in the not too distant future. I can see potentially some coaching business that I'd like. I have it up there in my frame, which I designed that logo about 3 years ago, and it's been on the wall ever since. And the wording above that, it says, when your body wants to give up, train your mind to push for more.
Oh, that's so true. That is true. And I think that, Johanna, I think is the message of hope from this show. Because if you were saying to anyone now, could you just repeat that again for us, please?
Of course. When your body wants to give up, train your mind to push for more.
100%. And that is really resilience, isn't it? That's what it is. And I'm always saying, you know, some children are resilient, some people aren't, but you can all become resilient by finding that person, that sort of solid oak tree in your life where you are not judged by that person that's always pushing you forward. And it might not even be your life partner. It might not even be your children. It could be the next door neighbor or some random friend that you've met by meeting them on a train or something. I mean, it is extraordinary. And I think a good coach, and I've seen it in my teaching career. I'm not a coach. You could say teaching coach, but I think a really good, solid sports coach can do so much for children that are struggling. They are a role model. They really are. And you can see children thrive and flourish, and that person does become their role model, and they are completely unforgettable. You see it so many times, and huge respect for coaches that do a really good job. So Johanna, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, extraordinary resilience, hugely inspiring. And anyone that's listening to this, do take on board that phrase that Johanna has just said to us, because that is what it's about. Our bodies want to give up, but our mind has to push through. Absolutely spot on, Johanna. Thank you. So, and also, I would very much like to have you back on, if I may, at some point to talk about life behind bars.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
I'd love to. I would love to do that when you're ready and when you can. Please let me know. And it's been, I hope you've enjoyed the interview. I very much have. And thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
I will do. And you enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you to you and your team for the opportunity. And I look forward to speaking to you another time.
Thank you very much, Johanna. Bye for now.
Bye.
Well, phew. Is there anything that Johanna Howells hasn't done? Goodness me, what a lady. She is, I mean, goodness mine, she has really used, has she not, mind, body and spirit that sort of literally power drives her through life. And I hope, I certainly have, and I hope everybody else can have. We're not all going to be hockey players, but, you know, that very essence of Johanna is hugely inspirational. And I hope we can all take something from that and maybe encourage our children or the children in our lives around us to come on, you power through, you push forward. It is a mindset at the end of the day. And Johanna, thank you very much. God bless for coming on. Thank you. And we will have you on again. So this is Marilyn Hawes signing off with @UnprecedentedTV and with my show Heart and Soul. Now, please tune in. I don't know when this is going out, but have a little look at it. I'll keep you abreast of it online, on Twitter. But then my next guest is going to be another quite traumatic one, like Three Dads Walking were. This one is going to be a guy called Martin Crosser, and he set up a charity called Charlie's Promise. Very sad story, but another gentleman dad with enormous resilience. And this is what is key. And never, ever take hope from anyone, because without hope, we can be horribly lost. So God bless and thank you so much for listening to me. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.